Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast for another episode. Today I'm joined with Doug, and today we're going to be speaking about autism, and it's pretty cool because Doug is kind of used to this kind of format because he has his own podcast too. So it's going to be cool to hear about his podcast, about his autism, and yeah. So Doug, so would you mind introducing yourself, please?
My name is Douglas Nelson Kenny. I'm based in Phoenix, Arizona, but originally from Estes Park, Colorado. And I'm known on YouTube along with my mentor Andy McPhee as RU Relentless and Unstoppable.
Okay. And like before we started, like it was quite funny because I've got a British accent and you've got an American accent, so it's going to be really cool speaking to each other from million miles away today. So thank you for taking the time to come on because I know we've spoken quite a lot about you coming on my show and I coming on your show, so it's gonna be really good fun. So when was you diagnosed, Doug, with autism?
I was diagnosed in 2002 when I was 4 years old, but I wasn't told about it until I was 10 years old in 2008.
Okay. Yeah, so I was diagnosed in 2009, so not far off. But did it, do you remember your reaction when you got told that you had you have autism?
Yeah, I remember it dearly. And I was told by my parents, and I reacted in a sense of relief, finally knowing what was going on with me and why I viewed things differently from people and why I had trouble making friends and all that. So, it was a relief to know about it, but there did come some struggles afterwards, especially in school, because the situation with my education quickly became toxic with what was going on, and I was hoping to be treated the same way as everybody else in spite of my autism, and for the most part I was, but there were some things about the schools I went to that weren't healthy. So yeah.
Hmm. It was pretty hard at like like do you think it was maybe that maybe people didn't understand autism maybe at the school is why maybe that you had a rough time.
That's exactly the reason why I had a rough time. There wasn't much education on autism at the time, and they just didn't know how. They didn't know how to treat me the same way as everybody else in spite of what I was dealing with. And yeah, in fact, there is a story I have about the time that happened soon after my autism diagnosis when I went to fifth grade. Before the fifth grade year began, I met my teacher at like a barbecue that was hosted on the shores of Lake Estes in my hometown of Estes Park, Colorado. And it was soon after I was told of my diagnosis, and I went up to sit with a couple students that were going to be in my class with me, and I told them a bit about it and hoped to finally make some friends. But I remember sitting on the table with him, and this is what I remember. It's very vague, but this is how it went along the lines. I told people about my autism diagnosis and hoped that it would not change their opinions of me, but one of the students, believe it or not, said to me, "You don't understand. This school is for us. Everything belongs to us," meaning regular students that weren't special needs. And even though I was told by the teacher afterwards to just ignore them, I would quickly learn over time that they were not wrong because, there was no education on special needs. You know what I mean?
Mm, yeah, I completely agree. I completely understand what you're saying. It's because I had a similar situation too. Like I think it was that time in your life where it's hard to make friends. It's hard to make friends anyway, isn't it? Um, but I was the same. It. Do you find that when you was at school? that it was very fast paced. Like everything had to be maybe a rush um, to do things in maybe in class or just maybe getting asked to do a task. Do you think it was quite fast paced and a rush?
Oh, you should have seen high school because when I went to high school many years after my diagnosis, I remember everything. They overloaded me and students with so much work, and especially in my senior year, to the point that I couldn't keep track of everything. And to make things worse, my senior year was a very toxic year for me as far as education. Like, I wasn't getting along with students, I wasn't getting along with staff members, and mental health was around. The 2010s were not good years. It was a very difficult decade from 2010 to 20, in my opinion.
Yeah, it definitely was because there wasn't as much maybe education about autism and people talking about it as we are now in 2022 going on to 2023 not far but yeah it has gone a long way and like it like no one knew of it and like especially if you was like at maybe mainstream especially maybe you're not in a special like setting where people know about autism and different things. So I completely agree with you.
Yeah, for sure. Did you have trouble with that in high school?
Well, what happened was, Doug, is I I well the first school I went to was it was a mainstream school, so it was very hard because you go on from your kind of primary setting, like, and then you go on to that, and it wasn't very nice because um not I was more focused on education than making friends because I wanted to have a good education and learn things and I wasn't learning things and like exams and work I was doing it was higher than my level and then I would get told by a teacher that I'm not smart enough and stuff like that and um, and it's not very good. And so I was only there a year, which is very hard. Um, because but when you have an autism diagnosis, things I guess you get more better support system if you're diagnosed like younger in life, like we did. You should not saying that everyone does. Um, but after that, I did go to I spent a year there, and then a year of hell, I would say actually, and then I went on to mainstream for the rest of my education, which was much better. It wasn't easy to start with because with change and routine, um, changing a lot. Maybe not as much work, for example. Maybe not as much homework. I remember at mainstream having half a dozen homeworks a week, like which is very it's very stressful.
Definitely. So, yeah. So that's really tough that, we have to go through this a lot with people that don't know how to treat people on the autism spectrum, right? And do you want to hear a story I have from when I was younger that involved a teacher crossing the line?
Yeah, yeah. Please tell.
When I was in second grade, I was in a special educational class for half the day and then an ordinary class at the start of the day. And I had a couple teachers in the sped ed class that weren't really good. And one time I got in trouble for messing around with another student, and the teacher responded by, oh, wait, no, it wasn't the teacher, it was her assistant, the assistant teacher. She responded by grabbing me by the legs and pulling me across a rug, which caused my back to burn. And it left a lot of scars on my back. There was rope burn like burns and the carpet was pretty rough even though it was soft. So when you dragged something on it, it led to burns, and I remember what happened was I kept the injuries hidden for about a day, but then they were discovered by my parents and an investigation broke out. And this assistant teacher and the teacher actually got fired for what happened. So yeah, I was the victim of an assault.
Yeah, that's awful behaviour from like an assistant. Um, and what was that because you were talking to another student?
Oh, no, no. What was that?
why, what was the cause of her doing that in the first place?
The cause that was doing it in the first place was I was messing around with a student. It wasn't like joking around or anything, but it was a little bit of rough housing.
Hmm.
So the problem was I made a mistake, but the teacher's reaction just crossed the line and the teacher assistant, you know what I mean?
Yeah, like there's no need to be dragging you on a rug. Um, what was this rug like? Was you like standing on this rug, or or something for her to stop doing that?
The rug was pretty jagged and feeling like even though the stuff on it was soft, it was still enough that if you dragged someone, it would create rope burn. It felt like a rope a little bit.
Yes, yeah, I understand that. Like if you're doing the tug of war maybe, and like you can feel that on your hands. I know that's not the same, but like it burns, doesn't it? But that's not very good. It's good that she did get like the sack, and she left because it's not on that type of behavior.
Nope, it was very inappropriate, and the police actually were going to investigate it before the firing happened, and it was proven that I was telling the truth. And to make it even worse, when I informed the assistant teacher that I was injured, she said, "Good."
That is terrible.
It was very terrible, and part of the reason why they were able to see what happened was because of the cameras in the room, and everything.
Oh yeah, it's good that you have cameras. Um,
Yeah.
to to help your case. But yeah, I bet you was happy that was all resolved. And what was she always like that? This assistant teacher, like, was you quite surprised what she did at the time?
I was surprised because at first she and I started out pretty good when I first met her, and but it was just that one moment, and it was not a good memory of mine.
No, no, it's not, dog. Do you do you want me to tell you maybe a scenario that's happened when I was at school?
Go ahead, yeah, feel
Yeah.
free.
Yeah. So the first one is I've got about two. I'll tell you two, but the first one is, with like autism, and some people don't maybe fully understand sarcasm and jokes all the time.
Yeah,
Um well I was getting changed for PE, um or like and stuff, and the teacher was said to me that you've got about 5 seconds to get changed, otherwise you'll be locked in. And I, I took that seriously, and I was racing against time to get changed in 5 seconds. Um, which I laugh about now, but then I was carrying all my stuff outside the changing room and stuff so I could get changed in time. Um, and that was one scenario. Um, and that same teacher actually who said that, in these schools are very big and it's very hard to find yourself around. Well, once that same teacher who said about the PE, um, sure I was struggling to find where I had to go, and you have like a map planner thing where it tells you, and then he like the teacher says he was looking at it, and because I had to get it out of my bag, he was getting, when you see someone's face and like they don't wanna be there to help you, kind of thing. So it was like that, and then I said to him that you can go if you want, you don't have to be there to help me, if because I'd rather someone help me that actually wants to help than that has to be someone else has to be somewhere else. And then eventually he tells me all these directions where my room is, and I don't take it in at all because he's going so fast, saying you go left, you do a right, you go up the stairs, you go around the stairs, you go to F block, and then you go to AB. And I haven't got a clue what he said. And then, of course, I get told off for being late, um, which the teachers didn't understand. Um, and I'll give you one more scenario, and this is all in mainstream. So this is all that 1 year I was before I went to special, which I was at special about 3 or 4. So a lot happened in this 1 year. um, um, and so the last scenarios, which I always talk about it with on the podcast with different people because I always find it annoying, always thinking about this. So it was before lunch, which in the mainstream school was a special class, like it's probably similar to yours. Like you had a class with people who have autism and different needs. And the teacher said to everyone, go wait outside the library after lunch. So basically, half the class did that, and we were waiting about 15 minutes. Um, and bearing in mind the helper teacher, the assistant teacher was with us, so she was there too, and we was all thinking standing there because we couldn't get in the library without the teacher because she had the key. Um, so we go back to the room where she like the classroom and that, and then as soon as we go through, the teacher says, "Why are you late?" Um, and then we're all thinking, what's going on here? Because you've just told us to wait out the library, and about 3 or 4 people were sitting down in a class, which we were all confused. And then the teacher doesn't try and maybe resolve the miscommunication somewhere. Um, which still to this day, I believe that is what she said. If she's told me to go to the classroom, I would have gone to the classroom. um, but the first thing she says, as we enter, why are you late? Um, I say, bearing in mind, at this point in my autism journey, I'm very low on confidence, and no one else is speaking up, so I kind of had to do that. Um, and then she says, you got a detention, which wasn't great. And then the following morning, the head of year, kind of the head teacher of your year, um, comes in and says, he brings us all out who went to the library, and says, why were you all late? And then I say, because that's what we thought we had to do. And then the, he says, you have to we're gonna let you off this time. And in my mind, I didn't say anything because I didn't like the tone of voice that was getting used. And some of the behaviour by teachers and that school was dreadful. It wasn't good. And and of course in my mind thinking, let off for what I'm doing, what I thought was right. So that was that. But the it could all stuff like that could all be resolved, and it's not very good by the staff there, Doug.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It's an interesting journey you have, but yeah. Do you want to hear about how Relentless and Unstoppable began?
Yeah, tell me all about it, Doug. It's gonna be really cool.
Relentless and Unstoppable was conceived through the idea of my mentor, Andy McPhee, who saw my journey with weight loss and overcoming struggles. And what happened was I started YouTube for the first time in 2014. But because of some rough years that I had, I didn't upload a video until 2 years later in 2016. And Andy became my mentor later that year when I was in the middle of a parental divorce and I was trying to rebuild myself. And Andy became my mentor where we did creative work together and improved my everyday living. And I started YouTube in 2016 where I interviewed race drivers and people in the motorsports industry. And I would do it for the next few years along with attending NASCAR races and going to national parks and a riding career that's going well so far. During the global pandemic, my partnership with Andy started to blossom. That year, I wanted to start my own podcast in order to spread positivity to the world. But the good news was I waited on it a bit because of circumstances as I dealt with the global pandemic. But then in July, Andy had an idea to interview me for the channel. and talk about my journey with autism and all that. And it was originally going to be only one video. And we did an episode, which is on my YouTube at the moment, on my YouTube with Andy. And the interview turned out well, getting over 1,000 views overnight. And then Andy decided that he figured out that he had a lot of connections that were similar to my journey, like Richard Norton and Sam Greco and Jerry Trimble, some international kickboxers, along with Mel Yu and Troy Coward and a few people in mental health, etc. And so we were going to do a 10-part series, which we titled Relentless and Unstoppable. But then what happened was it got so popular, the videos, that we decided to turn it into a podcast called Are You Relentless and Unstoppable? And we've brought some pretty big names onto the channel, like the producer of Prince of Egypt, the director of Prince of Egypt, along with Disney's Pocahontas and Disney's Beauty and the Beast. And we have some pretty famous names on there, and along with some race drivers that I know. And over time, the podcast became so popular, especially when I went to Woman of Achievement pageant. Through my connection with Andy, he introduced me to the people behind the pageant, so I got to go in. And then it led to my weekend in Nashville for the Music City Grand Prix, where I had a coincidental meeting with Roger Penske. And over time, the RNU platform became very popular, and now we're on our 4th season next year.
That is awesome. So do you normally per season, do you just have 10 episodes per season? Is that how you work it?
No. Originally, the show was only going to be 10 episodes long, but then we decided to just go with it and make it a long lasting podcast. Normally, we have at least 30 or 39, sometimes 40 interviews a year that we do for each
Okay.
season.
Okay. That is really cool. And so you, you you have some really cool people in it. It sounds like, though.
Yeah, some really great people, and some of them are famous and some are people you've never heard of, but none of this would have been possible without the mentorship with Andy, so he needs to get a lot of credit too.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I think a podcast is a great way just to, like you said, you spoke about mental health earlier, to help your mental health, I think, because especially in a pandemic, or still an ongoing pandemic, just talking to someone like this, like we are now, it's really helpful when you talk about a topic that you're passionate about.
Definitely. Do you have any other questions about the RNU platform?
So it started in 2020, so you're on your 4th series next year. Do you have so do you record in advance and release your episodes, or do you do an episode and release it?
What we do anyway, is we pre-record an episode, we record it, and then we do some editing, and we give our guests the opportunity to take out anything that they didn't want in the interview, or redoing it if there's so much stuff they regretted in it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is really cool. Because I know a lot of work has to be going in a podcast because I know because I got one. Um, I know because you create a name, that's your first step, and then you got a logo. Um, my logo's changed for it half a dozen times, but I want to keep it as it is, but I don't want to change it again. Um, but yeah, it's really cool because like you have like so with your episodes, do you just focus on autism, or do you have any other topics that you like to talk about?
We have several topics we talk about. We talk about autism, special needs, and anti-bullying and mental health and domestic violence awareness. And we also talk about wrestling and equine therapy, and just and the gay community. We're a stand for everyone.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's always good when you have other topics as well, because like it it makes it a variety, like a choice. Like you might have someone talking about wrestling, for example, now another one talking about um Grand Prix, and it's really cool because like I like to relate hobbies to my show too. Do you have any other hobbies other than your show and podcasting, Doug?
I like writing. I'm a movie buff, and I'm pretty well established as a movie buff because I know a lot of the filming locations in movies
Yeah.
and the music behind it and factoids about the actors and the cast members. Like I'm a big movie buff, and other hobbies I have are biking. Like I bike at least once a day and do exercise and focus on my health, etc.
Yeah. That is really good, and with the location with movies, I think that's really cool too because that's something I'm interested in. I like to go into different places, other places with films, because it's almost like you're there, in like in a iconic moment, really.
Yeah, for sure. What's your favorite movie?
Um, my favorite movie. Good question. Um, I do like you know, Kingsman. You know Kingsman?
Yeah,
I like that. Um, but like in in September time, I because I'm a massive Doctor Who fan and I like Doctor Who, so I went to different locations where that was set. So I plan to do that next year as well. So that, that's my all-time one. Um, but I like the Scream series as well. I like horror. Um, I'm not those one of people who has any. I like any kind of genre. Like when it comes to movies, I'm not one that I don't like. Not what I don't like. I just like anything that's good, I guess.
yeah, for sure. If I had to pick some of my favorite movies, it's hard, but I would say among my favorites are The Power of the Dog and also Death on the Nile and the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie and The Prince of Egypt and a lot of other great movies.
Yeah, yeah. Like because quite a lot of that, quite a lot of the movies, you know, like you got Spider-Man and stuff like that. It's set in America, so it's kind of famous for all the high profile movies.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because like the Marvel and Spider-Man, it's not over here. It's all in America. Well, which is it must be cool for you guys. I know like it's a lot of hours between places, I guess, for you to go to. But it's nice that you have a hobby of like liking movies and stuff.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's a lot of fun and you don't even need to eat the junk food that they serve at theaters, you know. It's the movie that's the best part in my opinion.
Yeah, like I don't like that. You know, when I go watch a movie and you got people next to you eating, you can't really concentrate and hear the movie when people do that.
No. No, you can't. Yeah. You have any other questions I can answer?
Um, do you have like so? What is the plan like going into next year for for the podcast?
The plan for next year is we're going to have an intro video for the show with our theme song. We just got a theme song produced, and we're going to keep promoting our guests and their everyday activities. And we're also going to keep up what we're doing with the mission of inspiring others. And we just released an apparel line for RNU, which is called which has our logos on it. We have hats like these and shirts with the RNU logo and beanie caps. Like, let me get one for you very quick. Let me get one. Beanie caps like this and
Oh, that's
with the
nice.
RNU logo on it. So it's going very good so far.
Yeah. So, what does so your podcast is called Relentless and Unstoppable? Is that right?
It's called Relentless and Unstoppable, and Andy McPhee and me are the co-founders, and it was conceived by Andy.
Okay. Yeah. It very good name. I do like it.
Thank you. Yeah, it was inspired by article that we read or a book or something. That's where we got it from.
Yeah, yeah, it's very good. And it's good that you got some like merch, like you got your hats, you got beanie. So especially we're coming into the winter months now, so a beanie would be very helpful for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do like a beanie. Um, so Doug, with like your autism, like like what would you say maybe your triggers are? Like, do you like loud noises? Do you like big environment? Um, yeah.
Do I like what?
Do you like loud noises? Do you like a big environment or a small environment, small space?
I prefer between a large space and a small space. And my triggers, I do like loud noise every now and then, but mostly no.
Hmm.
Like I don't like hearing those sports cars go flying past you when you're on your bike and all that. That's not my type of noise.
No, no. Like one for me is you know like it's very interesting because let's say I'm out in a restaurant and I hear loads of people eating, that won't be as bad like as when I'm at home and I'm eating dinner and someone making a really loud noise with their plate and eating. I wouldn't get on with that. Which is it's very different. So I don't like those little noises that get into your head, kind of like that.
Yeah, yeah, they are. And loud noise for me is one of them. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it is good and like we said before, like we have our special interests that is very that do go along with autism too. So like you like your wrestling, you like your movies, and I guess we could say our podcasts are hobbies too.
Yeah, for sure. Is
Yeah.
that all the questions you have,
Um,
or are there
yeah.
more?
Last one. Before we finish, Doug. Is there? Do you have any advice about autism or any last words to finish?
Yes, my final thoughts are, we need to recognize that autism, bipolar, and other neurological stuff, they're abilities, not disabilities. And we also need to do everything we can to support any sort of community. Like one of my biggest heroes is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And his I Have a Dream speech is not just for blacks and white people, or in this case, I should say African American or Caucasian, just to be polite. It's not just for those. It's just we have to, I Have a Dream applies to everything from people in the gay community and autism, special needs, and African Americans and Caucasians. I Have a Dream applies to everybody, and we have to be a stand for everybody. And another thing we need to do is we need to also do everything we can to make people that are suffering feel better so that they can see that there's light at the end of the tunnel. And just because someone is autistic doesn't mean they should be treated any differently than the rest of the world. And aside from that, it'd be very great if schools learned more about autism and learned about the seriousness of mental health and everything, because suicide rates are skyrocketing and I think that's unacceptable.
Yeah. I completely agree with you, Doug, and especially what you said at the end there with with schools because lots of better education does need to go into it. Like even if they did maybe a 10-minute lesson at the start of the day or something, just saying what autism is and like if because if people have that growing up, they're going to have more knowledge as they get older, even if they don't have autism. Um, so you understand that everyone is different and not everyone is the same. But I completely agree, and I love your advice because there's always a light at the end. A light at the end of the tunnel, however long it is. But yeah, it's been wonderful speaking to you, Doug. I am looking forward to some point coming on your show because I heard lots of good stuff about it today. So I hope you've enjoyed coming on my podcast today.
I enjoyed it definitely. We can do it again next month if you'd like.
Yeah, maybe. We'll have to arrange it, won't we? Afterwards, but yeah, I look forward to it, Doug. It's gonna be cool.
Thank you very much, man, and I appreciated talking with you.
Yeah, I appreciate talking with you too, Doug. Thank you to everyone listening and watching. We hope you enjoyed today's talk from America to the UK. But it's been great talking to you, Doug. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Have a nice rest of your day.
Thank you
Yeah,
very much. You too.
thank you.